Warm greetings of peace and goodwill, fellow Sons of Lourdes alumni, Pax et Bonum, and welcome to Sol 101, the very first time we're going to do it. It's a little bit long overdue, but now we shall have the introduction to SOL, the Alumni Association. So I am your presenter for this evening, Sol Oliver Darvin of LSM Batch 78 and one of the founding fathers of the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association and a former chairman of the SOL Alumni Council. So please allow me to share my screen as I go you through a number of slides to tell you the story of SOL. The SOL 101 will take you a bit through the history of the alumni organization. We shall also show to you the mission of SOL and take you through the constitution and bylaws of the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. And at the end, I shall tell you about SOL practices and traditions. And at the end, I shall provide you with SOL practices and traditions that every Sons of Lourdes should know. The official founding date of SOL is September 11, 2001, and the organization was founded in my office at Suite 1014 at Shaw Towers, Shaw Boulevard corner, St. Francis Street, Mandaluyong, overlooking our alma mater. And as you very well know, this date is quite significant because this was the time that we had 9/11 happening in the USA. So on this day, between 8 to 9 in the evening, the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association of LSM was conceived by a group of alumni from the LSM class of 1978. Present during this historic meeting and overlooking the alma mater at that time were the co-founders of SOL, including Rene Gacuma, Dennis O'Malley, the late Juvenal Max Villaran, the late Isagani Ferrer, Christopher Ramos, Galvin Lahera, Sir Noel Verano, and yours truly. SOL replaced the pre-existing LSMAA, or Lourdes School of Mandaluyong Alumni Association, founded in 1985 by its first president, Ed Castello, from the class of 1965, who eventually became our first chairman of the SOL Alumni Council. SOL was officially incorporated on August 21st, 2003. This is a group photo of the founding batch of Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. LSM Batch 78, who fondly call ourselves the Soul of SOL. This photo was taken during the very first homecoming of the SOL Alumni Association in February of 2003. You will see that this very first homecoming had simple ceremonies, like you will see the oath-taking here of the executive board being conducted by Father Ed Jamson, Father Rector at the time. And of course, you will see here the Hijos de San Francisco at that time, which included my own son from the batch of 2004. So they're all alumni at this point in time. So here are some photos of the registration. This was the graduating batch of Lourdes School Mandaluyong in 2003. And of course, some memorable class pictures. The entertainment at the time was also quite fun. We had a band, and of course, we had alumni musicians, which played all night, and the usual fun that SOL homecomings are now memorable for. You will see that even at the time, we already used the tables from the old canteen. On this slide, you will find the original founding fathers of SOL. We have Ed Castello from the very first batch that graduated out of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. We consider Ed as the father of the LSM alumni movement, having founded the LSM Alumni Association in 1985, and also the first chairman of the SOL Alumni Council. We also see here Sol Rene Gakuma, my batchmate, who was the second and last president of the LSMAA and the very first SOL president. He was also the organizing chairman of the last LSMAA homecoming in 2000 when LSM celebrated its 40th year. The theme was LSM at 40, Alive Well. At that time, homecomings at LSM for alumni occurred only every 5 years. Rene is also the second chairman of the SOL Alumni Council. And of course, we have myself from LSM 78, who more or less conceptualized the new alumni organization and coined the name Sons of Lourdes, or SOL, as name of the organization. I was also the organizing chairman of the very first SOL homecoming in 2003, which had the theme SOL Rising. Eventually, we also crafted the SOL Constitution and bylaws, and I was also elected as third chairman of the SOL Alumni Council in 2009. We have the late Isagani Ferrer, who is also my batchmate, who orchestrated the financing and provided for ways and means for the new organization. He is also the very first SOL treasurer. Now, very important to the sustenance or sustaining of SOL is the continuity through the batches. And we consider Norman Cabrera, Sol Norman Cabrera from LSM 79 as key to GIS, since he was always fully involved in the plannings of SOL 78, always sat with us, was there with our board, and he eventually became the second SOL president. He was also the organizing chairman of the second SOL homecoming in 2004 with the theme SOL Shining. Sol Norman presided and ensured the continuity of the SOL alumni movement together with his batchmate Vic Ahoro from LSM 79, fondly called the Smeggies, and Sol Emmanuel Mane Fernandez of LSM 80, who eventually became the third SOL president. We also have Dennis Umali from LSM 78, who created and designed this now very familiar SOL logo that you see, who's also a member of the SOL Executive Board as a trustee from 2003 and 2004. Sol Dennis is actively engaged in the organizational activities of SOL. Then we also have Sol Miguel Mike Villamayor, also my batchmate, who became the first chairman pro temp of the SOL Alumni Council, Vice Sol Ed Castello. He is here because he is historically known as the proponent for the use of the salutation SOL to address a fellow LSM alumnus. So instead of calling each other Brad, etc., or kapatid, we now address ourselves formally as SOL. The salutation has since evolved so that it is even used by LSQC alumni to address fellow and LSM alumni. We have interactions, frequent interactions, and a lot of projects between LSM and LSQC alumni. And now it is also used to address LSM students aside from the titles Lourdesian or Lourdesiano. So the original founding fathers of SOL would not be complete without our very first SOL advisor. And of course, that is the longest serving rector of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong, Father Ed Tiamson. And up to now, we recognize him for his contributions to SOL, for actually encouraging the organization of the Alumni Association. At this point, I'd like to share the chairman of the SOL Alumni Council through the years. The very first chairman of the SOL Alumni Council is himself the father of the LSM alumni movement from 2003 to 2006, Attorney Eduardo Ed Castello of the very first batch coming out of LSM 65, became the first SOL Alumni Council chair. He was succeeded in 2006 to 2009 by my batchmate, Rene Gacuma of LSM 78, who was also the first SOL president. I succeeded Rene in 2009 to 2012 as SOL Alumni Council chairman, and passed the leadership of the council in 2012 to Sol Emmanuel Mane Fernandez, who was the third SOL president and coming from LSM class of 1980. In 2015, Rosano Sani Veluz of LSM class of 75 was elected as the SOL Alumni Council chairman, and he held this position until 2018. In 2018, we had a very young group of alumni now managing the SOL Alumni Council, and this is led by Sol Daniel Donato from the class of LSM 1991, who was also the president of SOL from 2016 to 2017. This is the incumbent chairman of the SOL Alumni Council, and his term will end in February 2021. In this photo, you will see the handover of the leadership of the SOL Alumni Council in 2012 from myself to Chairman Mane Fernandez during the SOL homecoming in 2012. So you will see here the current chairman of the SOL Alumni Council, who is seated at the center. That is Daniel Donato, flanked by past chairman of the Alumni Council and other members of the SOL Alumni Council. The current incumbent SOL Alumni Council includes Daniel Donato from LSM 1991. We have the chairman pro tempore, Ronald Ron Guerrero, who comes from LSM 97. The floor leader and secretary is Sol Edwin Valles from LSM 1990. And we have a very young sergeant at arms who comes from the class of 2003, Marion Rosalio Maro M. Martires. Let me take you through the years, and these are the presidents of the SOL Alumni Association. The first president being Rene L. Gacuma. In 2004 to 2005, we had Norman Cabrera. 2005 to 2006, we had Mane Fernandez. We had Harry Portillo from LSM 81 from 2006 to 2007. Sol Dindo Gonzalez from LSM 82 from 2007 to 2008. We have General Arwin Pagkalinawan from LSM 83 from 2008 to 2009. And from LSM 84, we had Dayo Candelaria, who was SOL president from 2009 to 2010. In 2010, we celebrated the 50th year of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. And we had Jojo Villa Ignacio from LSM 85 as the SOL president. He was succeeded by Jerry Limpo from the class of 1986 from 2011 to 2012, and Sol Joji Tagle, who managed the association straight from Baguio City as a member of LSM 87, who held the position of SOL president from 2012 to 2013. Now in 2013, we have one batch who had the longest planning time for their year, because right when we started SOL, the LSM batch of 88 was very much involved with us in the organization of the Alumni Association. We had Glenn Warren Lamson, who took over the helm of SOL as president from 2013 and 2014. In 2014 to 2015, Teofilo Bong Isaac Jr. of LSM 89 held the position as SOL president. In 2015 to 2016, when we celebrated the 55th year anniversary of SOL, we had Albert Jobet Calacyan as the president of Sons of Lourdes. He was succeeded in 2016 to 2017 by Daniel Donato. In 2017 to 2018, we have Xavier Soriano as president of SOL. In 2018 to 2019, Stanley Celudo from LSM 93 became SOL president. And in 2019 to 2020, Brian Laput from LSM 94 became SOL president, and he handed this over to our current and incumbent SOL president, John Christopher Jojo Manda from LSM batch of 1995. So these are the members of the incumbent SOL Executive Board of 2020 to 2021. While you will notice that they are predominantly from the class of LSM 95, they are not purely from the class of LSM 95. Sitting on the SOL Executive Board, or the incumbent SOL Executive Board, is the President-elect Leo Oliver Molina of LSM 96. And it also includes the ex-officio, Brian Laput of LSM 94. So since we plan in advance, we in fact already have a SOL Executive Board-elect who will be taking over the reins and leadership of SOL on February 2021 until 2022. So you will note here that by that time, Leo Oliver Molina will become the SOL president. And in fact, LSM 97 this early already has Ronald Ron Guerrero, who is currently the incumbent SOL Alumni Council Chairman Pro Tem, becoming president-elect, meaning that he will become the SOL president from 2022 to 2023, which gives him a lot of time to do planning for the fiscal year at the time and for the alumni homecoming. Of course, John Christopher Jojo Manda will also sit in the incoming executive board as ex officio by the time the new SOL executive board goes into office. So what is the mission of SOL? This is written in the Constitution of Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. The principal objective is to foster brotherhood and unite ourselves in closer bonds of fellowship and mutual assistance, fully realizing the ideals of our Lourdesian Franciscan education through social advocacy and responsibility. We would also like to stimulate, build, and promote pride, fervor, and loyalty in our common link, which is our beloved alma mater. And of course, to acquaint ourselves fully with the progress and needs of the school and assist in interpreting its mission, its work, and services to the Almighty and to our nation, the Philippines. So the SOL logo, as you will see here, was designed by Sol Dennis O'Malley of LSM class of 1978. So it is an official blue and white logo. It is also the seal of the association. And it is composed of a rising sun, which represents our common bond, our alma mater. The blue field represents society in general. And the rays emanating from the sun represent the graduating batches from Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. The single glowing ray in the middle represents the birth of the revitalized Alumni Association, the Sons of Lourdes, LSM Alumni Association Incorporated. So here's that logo once again. And I said there are secrets here. And some of these secrets include a secret of our batch, which I will be revealing to you now. So you will see that single glowing batch right here, which I said earlier represents the birth of the Alumni Association. But in fact, if you were going to count the number of rays from the very left and going up, you will see that each batch represents, or each ray represents a batch in the organization. And as you very well know, the very first batch was the batch of 65. So if this 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, batch of 75, 76, 77, you will see that that glow falls for the class of 78. And this is closely intertwined with the succeeding batch, the batch of 79, because we worked very closely with the class of 79 to ensure the continuity of the SOL alumni movement. The Alumni Council has a slightly modified logo of its own with the theme Ipalawak, Ipagtibay, and Patagalin, which is the aim of the Alumni Council, which is to be more inclusive of LSM alumni and make it a strong organization and make it last through the years. So who are considered members of SOL? So take note that if you have graduated high school or elementary from Lourdes School of Mandaluyong, even if you only attended LSM on your senior year or during your grade 7, you will be considered as a member of SOL. You're qualified to be a member or fellow of SOL. Include also those who have spent at least 2 years in high school or 6 years combined in prep and elementary. You will also be considered as an alumnus and a fellow of the association. Because of course, you are familiar with some of your batchmates who you shared the class for many years, but for some reason or another, they transferred to another school. But as long as they fall into these qualifications, they can be considered members of SOL, which is one of the reasons why even in our batch, we have classmates who attended Lourdes School of Mandaluyong while he was only in elementary after he transferred to high school. And we also have batchmates who didn't finish in LSM, but who were with us through the high school years. We also have batchmates who only joined us during the graduating year, but they are also considered as members of SOL. Active fellows shall be those covered under Section 2 and Article 1 of the Constitution who contribute to the annual fund for the current year, meaning nagbayad sila ng kanilang Alumni Association due. Associate fellows shall include faculty and other employees who have served a tenure of at least 3 years with the school, either in the teaching, administrative, or support capacity. Who else? We can have honorary fellows. They do not need to be an alumni, but they can be chosen by the Alumni Council. This will include friends of the organization or the school who have contributed a significant service or provided a significant gift to the SOL Annual Fund. Who else can be considered members of SOL? These are constituent organizations formed within the association. A good example of this is the SOL Football Club. There was also once a SOL Badminton Club. So constituent organizations made up their own constitution, pass bylaws, etc. provided that nothing adopted shall be in conflict with the Constitution of SOL. So the SOL government is composed of three bodies: the General Assembly, or the members at large. We have the SOL Alumni Council and the SOL Executive Board. There is an Alumni Council in which the voting rights of the General Fellowship shall be vested. So it is also the policy-making body of the organization. It will be composed of the following: one representative and an alternate for at least 12 school year batches of LSM representing the membership at large. A representative from the non-batch constituent organizations, officers and trustees of the incumbent executive committee, the council of past presidents and chairmen, the president of the current high school student government of LSM. So take note that the presence of representatives from at least 7 alumni classes of batches will constitute a quorum for the alumni council meetings or the Congress. These are the officers of the alumni council. You have a chairman, chairman pro temp. You have a floor leader, assistant floor leader, secretary, and sergeant at arms. Of course, the chairman is the one who presides over the meetings. And we also have a chairman pro temp who takes over if the chairman is not available, or if the chairman would want to participate in the discussions on the floor, the chairman pro temp could take over as presiding officer. The floor leader and the assistant floor leaders are the ones who prepare the agenda for meetings of the Alumni Council and for the SOL Congress, which happens twice a year. We also have a secretary and a sergeant at arms to ensure order on the floor. These are the duties and responsibilities of the SOL Alumni Council. It is, first of all, the policy-making body of the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. And their role is to pass bylaws governing the association, propose and approve amendments to the Constitution, craft resolutions, policies, and procedures. They're also there to hear an annual report from the incumbent president, secretary, and treasurer of the association, to elect the officers of the Alumni Council, and should the situation arise, to elect a provisional set of executive officers for the Alumni Association, should the current mandated batch be unable to elect officers from their own batch. The Alumni Council will also review and approve applications of clubs and other organizations applying to be a constituent organization of the association based on their constitutions and merits, and to establish the eligibility requirements of the constituent organizations. It is also the responsibility of the SOL Alumni Council to approve the annual budget for the association as presented by the incoming set of executive officers. The SOL Executive Committee, on the other hand, shall perform the leadership and executive functions of the association. The Executive Committee will have a fixed term of 1 year, which shall be from February of each year to February of the following year, during the annual Congress and Alumni Homecoming. All officers and trustees of the incumbent Executive Committee shall have voting rights within the committee. So these are the positions that should be filled up within the SOL Executive Committee. Aside from the president and vice president, you have the treasurer, auditor, you have a PRO, and you will have 3 trustees. Also sitting with the SOL Executive Committee would be the president-elect of the succeeding batch and the immediate past president. Having the president-elect and the immediate past president would help ensure continuity and sustenance of the organization. In fact, right now, we are encouraging the incumbent SOL Executive Committee to also include not only the president-elect, but the president nominee from up to 2 or 3 batches in the future. So except for the immediate past president and the president-elect, the officers and trustees of the executive committee shall come from the batch celebrating its 25th or silver anniversary for the current year. The only exception to this shall be if the current celebrating batch, for any reason, is unable to elect a set of officers and trustees on their assigned year. And believe it or not, this almost happened. And it is very fortunate that at that time, the founding fathers was able to help and salvage the situation so that the particular batch was able to elect a president at that time. But should this happen, the Alumni Council shall be tasked to nominate and elect a set of executive officers from the General Fellowship who shall hold office for the duration of the said term. As much as possible, this executive committee should meet at least once every month. The presence of at least half the members of the executive committee shall constitute a quorum. So what are the roles of the executive committee? They're there to implement Alumni Council policies, recommend policy matters to the Alumni Council, initiate, organize, and implement socially responsible or alumni-oriented projects and programs designed to achieve the objectives of the association and build its operating funds, to recommend agendas for the Alumni Council meeting. And at the time that this constitution was prepared, it was not yet foreseen at that time, but in fact, a key role of the SOL Executive Committee is to run and manage the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association office, including our secretary, of course, Mabel Montana. Of course, the SOL Executive Committee will appoint the appropriate standing and special committees upon recommendation of the president of the association, and to prepare, present to the Alumni Council, manage and control the annual operating budget for the association. The fiscal year or annual fund is defined as beginning from February of the current year until end January of the following year. The annual membership due to enjoy active fellow status for non-employed or college undergraduate fellows of the association is 300 pesos. For gainfully employed fellows or members of this association, the annual due is 500 pesos. I believe this will be already up for review since these fees were crafted in 2003. Of course, for those based abroad, an annual membership due of $50 or its equivalent in Philippine peso is encouraged for all foreign-based fellows. Fundraising and specialty loyalty offerings over and above the annual membership fee may be voluntarily made by the Executive Committee and Alumni Council to help build the finances of the association. In fact, in 2017, we organized a sub-organization called the Rising Sons of Lourdes, whose main mission would be to raise funds for the projects of the Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. This is headed by none other than past President Jobet Calacyan of the batch of 1990. The Executive Committee also shall actively endeavor to maximize its effort in the collection of the annual membership dues. So the Constitution of SOL may be amended at any regular meeting of the Alumni Council by a 2/3 vote of those present and ratified by a 2/3 vote of the General Assembly during the annual alumni homecoming. The bylaws, on the other hand, may be amended by a simple majority of those attending any regular meeting of the Alumni Council. So to end, I would like to share some SOL practices and traditions every Sons of Lourdes should know. I know there has been a lot of confusion through the years, but this is the time to be able to know the practices and traditions that we should be carrying out year after year. First of all, the annual SOL homecoming is counted from the very first one held in 2003 and hosted by LSM 78, and should not be counted from the founding of LSM. I remember seeing a homecoming which stated, I think, the 59th homecoming of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. So this is not correct. It is counted from the very first one hosted in 2003. So for example, last February 2020, we celebrated the 18th SOL homecoming and not the 60th. Next year, the batch of 1996 will be hosting the 19th SOL homecoming. What we celebrated in 2020 is the 60th anniversary of the founding of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. So there are two parts to this. This is the 60th anniversary of Lourdes School of Mandaluyong and the 18th SOL homecoming. So one more thing that should be clear, especially to the celebrating host batches and for the executive boards, the annual SOL homecoming ushers in the fiscal year of the host batch and does not end it. This is one frequent error that we've been observing in several homecomings in the past year. The host batch, after hosting the homecoming, should consider the expenses of operating the organization and holding its projects for the coming year. In fact, last February 2020, we did it right because the past SOL executive board, which was predominantly led by LSM 94, handed it to the incumbent executive committee, which is predominantly LSM 95. So next year, in February 2021, SOL President Jojo Manda shall be handing in the reins of leadership of the organization to the new SOL President, Leo Oliver Molina. The official handover during the annual SOL homecoming should be from the outgoing batch to the incoming batch who hosted the homecoming. So in February 2021, SOL officers coming from LSM 95 shall pass the symbol of leadership to LSM 96, who will be the host of the homecoming. So this should be emphasized. The host batch and incoming officers are SOL officers and not batch class officers. The SOL president is the SOL president and not the batch president of the incumbent batch. I hope I got that clearly. Therefore, the organizing chairman of the annual SOL homecoming will be the one installed as SOL president and the officers of the SOL executive board. So for the current example, Leo Oliver Molina, who is the president-elect, should also be the organizing chairman for the annual homecoming to be held in February 2021. And after the homecoming, he shall be installed as the official incumbent SOL president, succeeding Jojo Manda. A host batch may opt to have a separate batch president and officers, different from the SOL executive board. Finally, the annual SOL homecoming program, which is held in front of the General Assembly or in front of all attending members, should always include the following ceremonies. First, the celebration should be opened formally by the outgoing SOL president. In this case, during the 2021 homecoming, it should be Jojo Manda who should be officially opening the celebration as the outgoing SOL president. He will also be asked to provide a valedictory address to be able to share what has happened to the organization in the past year. It should also include the introduction and induction of the new SOL Executive Board, and every 3 years, the officers of the SOL Alumni Council. So in fact, in 2021, since the term of the Alumni Council led by Chairman Daniel Donato shall end, there should also be a valedictory address of the outgoing SOL Alumni Council Chairman. There should also be an inaugural address of the new SOL President, who in this case next year would be Leo Oliver Molina. And of course, by then we shall also have elected a new chairman of the SOL Alumni Council, who should also provide an inaugural address. Although this is only done every 3 years. And this is a tradition that is not usually seen in the most recent homecoming activities of SOL. The Lourdes School Forever hymn is to be led by the entire host batch on stage. This is your time to shine. If you are the host batch celebrating your silver jubilee, it is usually a tradition that your entire batch goes on stage and leads the General Assembly in singing our alma mater hymn, the Lourdes School Forever. And of course, there being a new SOL president, the official adjournment is then done by the new SOL president. So these are SOL practices and traditions every Sons of Lourdes should know. So there you have it, the very first session of SOL 101, an introductory module to Sons of Lourdes Alumni Association. I hope this has given you a better insight and knowledge about our organization. And knowing this, I hope that you will be able to further build and strengthen, together with all of us, SOL, which we proudly hold as our own high school alumni organization. Thank you very much. Pakset.